Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tilly and today I'm going to be filming a series wrap up for you guys. So I saw Lotti from LottisLibary and I've seen a couple of other people do very similar videos in regards to wrapping up the series that they read during 2022. I'm going to leave Lotti's video and her channel down below because you absolutely should check her out because her videos are absolutely fantastic. But yeah, what I thought we could do is to start with have a look at the stats and then we'll have a little chat through the series. So the stats might not be 100% accurate. I only started using CorePile halfway through last year. However, this year I'm very much using CorePile. I'm also using Ali from the HardbackHoarder's spreadsheet in terms of series trackings, so I'm hoping it's going to be much more accurate when I film this type of video next year. But as far as I'm aware, I started 2022 on 6 series. I started 15 series during 2022, caught up on 5, DNFs 3, completed 5, and if my maths is correct, I was currently reading 15 series at the end of 2022. So let's start by talking about the series that I started in 2022 but I'm not yet caught up on. So the first of those is the Guardians of the Galaxy comics. If you've watched my top books of 2022, then you'll know that I absolutely loved this comic. So it's of no fault of the comic that I haven't actually continued this. As you guys probably know, comics and graphic novels can be quite expensive, so that's the only reason that I haven't continued this series just yet. I definitely want to get the next comic in the series so that I can continue this. It is very similar to the Guardians of the Galaxy films, although it does have some slight differences. The first comic also had Iron Man in it, which was great as I love Iron Man, I love Tony Stark. So seeing the dynamic between him and the Guardians was just really cool to see. Then on a kind of similar vein, we've got Lore Olympus, where I read the first volume, absolutely loved it, read it in one sitting, but hadn't continued the series because they were quite expensive to buy. If you've watched my January/birthday haul, you'll know that I got volume 2 and 3 in the Boxing Day sales. So I do now own them and I do intend to read them fairly shortly, so we'll be definitely continuing that series. If you didn't know what Lore Olympus is, it primarily follows Hades and Persephone, as well as a lot of the other Greek gods, but taking it into modern time and dealing with modern day challenges. The last comic/graphic novel on this list is the Buffy the Vampire series. Again, absolutely love this series, love the comics. It's basically the Buffy that we know and we love during the 90s, but bringing it into modern day, and it was just so well done. I'm desperate to continue this series, but again, graphic novels can be quite pricey, so that's the only thing that's kind of put me off, but it is something I desperately want to continue this year. Last year I also read One of Us is Lying, which is the first book in the One of Us is Lying series. I did absolutely love this book and again can't wait to continue this series. If you didn't know, One of Us is Lying is about a group of teenagers who all potentially could have the motive of killing this guy that has recently died. So it's us trying to suss out who is the unreliable narrator and who actually killed this character. I also read Pestilence as part of BeccaamdTheBooks' Alpha book club, which is part of the Four Horsemen series by Laura Thalassa. I haven't actually continued the series yet as I was kind of a little bit dubious about Pestilence as I found it just okay. I'm still in a little bit torn as to whether I continue the series, but at the moment it's not a DNF, it's just very low priority. I also read The X-Hex by Erin Sterling last year, and I know there's a lot of mixed reviews online. I know a lot of people didn't enjoy The X-Hex, but I feel like I'm one of the few that actually found it a lot of fun and did really enjoy it. So I do definitely want to continue that series and read The Kiss Curse. Then we have the Heartstopper series, which I've talked about a fair bit on this channel, and you'll know I absolutely loved the first 2 books within that series, and I absolutely cannot wait to continue. I have kind of been waiting for a readathon to read them because they do tend to be the perfect read for a readathon, but I am tempted to just bite the bullet and just read them because I'm just too excited and I just want to read them. I also read Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief last year and I have since continued the series. I am having the best time reading the Percy Jackson series. I am reading it with Ro from WanderingThroughWorlds and her Patreon, and yeah, as I said, just absolutely loving the series. So glad I finally got to it. In fact, I'm just about to start the Battle of the Labyrinth, so I'm almost caught up. Last year I also read A Darker Shade of Magic, which is the first book in the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. I have since finished that trilogy and absolutely loved it. V. Schwab's writing is just incredible. Her world building, her character development, just honestly insane, and if you haven't read the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy, please do. Okay, so the next category is book series that I'm caught up on, but they're not finished series, so these authors are still releasing books. The first one is kind of topical as I am wearing a Crescent City jacket jumper. So you guessed it, it is the Crescent City series. The first book within the Crescent City series, A House of Earth and Blood, is one of my all-time favourite books. I could talk for ages about why I love this book so much. The second book didn't really do it as much for me. The ending was just mind-blowing, but the rest of it just kind of fell a little bit short for me. I will 100% be continuing this series when the next book comes out. Then we have the Blood and Ash series. So I caught up on the series by reading The War of Two Queens last year. If I'm honest, I really didn't love that book. I know that might be an unpopular opinion, but I just found it really repetitive. I just didn't feel like it was very well written. And so I would definitely continue the Blood and Ash series because I feel like I am so invested and I want to find out what happens, but I'm not really holding out hope that I'm going to enjoy them that much, which is kind of sad to say. Another series by Jennifer L. Armentrout which I am caught up on is the Flesh and Fire series. I do really enjoy this series. So this is kind of set within the same universe, but it's kind of like a prequel series, and I have enjoyed it, but again I find that they're so chunky books, but it's not justified. There's just so much filler, but again I do feel like I'm massively invested and I just need to find out what happens. And then the last book that I'm all caught up on but haven't finished the series is the Plated Prisoner series. So I read Glow last year, absolutely loved it, have absolutely loved the Plated Prisoner series. It's absolutely fantastic. If you haven't read it, please do. The series follows a girl called Oren who is gold touch, meaning that her entire body, skin, hair, nails, everything is gold. It is essentially a King Midas retelling. So she is the favourite of the king, but something happens and she gets separated from the king and she kind of gets kidnapped, but then a whole lot of other stuff happens. I feel like I'm really bad at explaining books, but it's just such a fantastic series and you should definitely check it out. We also have The Brutal Boys of Everlake Prep. So this is a bully romance, reverse harem. I kind of went down a Kindle Unlimited hole. It was just a very easy read. It has some plot. Would I recommend this series? Maybe not. Was it a good time? Yes. Was it well written? Not sure. But I did end up reading every book within that series, so it's in this category. And then onto the series that I have actually DNF. So the first series within this is the Prosper Redding duology. I read the first book, which is The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding. So this series follows Prosper, who is part of a family that And if I'm honest, I just really didn't enjoy this book. It sounds really bad, but I just really didn't care about the characters. I didn't find it engaging, and I'm just really not fussed about reading the second book. So I went through a little bit of a Kindle Unlimited phase, and so I read some of the popular series. So one of those is the Harlequin Crew. So it's basically kind of smart reverse harem. There is a little bit of a plot, but yeah, and funnily enough, I've read most of the books in this series, so it's just the final one. But if I'm honest, I'm just really not fussed about giving it a read. And then the last one is the Vicious Lost Boys. So again, this is another Kindle Unlimited one, which is based around Peter Pan. It is very smutty. I read the first two, I think. They were just very quick reads. I wouldn't really recommend them, and I'm just not really fussed in continuing this series. Then we have all of the completed series. So within this we have another Kindle Unlimited. This was Age of Vampires, which was by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti, who are the authors that wrote the Zodiac Academy books. To be honest, I just went down this massive rabbit hole. I would say these books are probably the worst ones that they've written, and I just absolutely would not recommend them. The one thing I would say is that they were very short, and also I got to a point where I felt invested and I felt I needed to carry on reading to find out what happened, but at the same time I kind of wish I'd DNF. Then we have the Six of Crows duology. So you'll know, if you've watched my best books of 22, that I read Crooked Kingdom and absolutely loved it. I loved this series. It's set in the same series as the Shadow and Bone series, if you've read that as well. The first book is a heist, and as you can tell from the title, there are 6 different characters with 6 different motivations. I love the characters and I just loved the story and how it all kind of came together, and I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. I also reread and finished the Kingdom of the Wicked series. I loved the first 2 books in this series, but the third one for me unfortunately really let it down and I really didn't enjoy it. I can see what Kerry Maniscalco was going for and why things went the way they did, but I just really didn't enjoy that direction. And so for me, sadly, I probably will never reread this series, and I'm a little bit torn as to whether I read her new release, which I think is going to be based around the House of Envy envy, but unfortunately the last book in that series I really didn't like. I also read the It Ends With Us duology by Colleen Hoover. It Ends With Us was a massive surprise to me, as Colleen Hoover is a bit like Marmite on BookTube. I absolutely loved It Ends With Us. I thought it was such a fantastic story, some amazing representation, and I thought it was told in such a clever way. It Starts With Us, however, just felt a little bit sort of fan servicey and unnecessary. So unfortunately my camera died, so apologies if the lighting angle is a little bit different. But the last book in the series that I completed in 2022 is Throne of Glass. You might not believe it took me so long to read The Assassin's Blade, which is the collection of short stories which is set before the main Throne of Glass series. So I read that during 2022, so technically finished the Throne of Glass series. I'm sure you can probably guess from the number of Sarah J Maas books are on my bookshelf that she is one of my favourite authors. So I absolutely love the Throne of Glass series, so I was really pleased to finish this off last year. And then just lastly, I thought I'd talk you through the series that I didn't necessarily start in 2022. I started them before that, but they are series that I intend to continue. So the first book on that list is The Zodiac Academy. The Zodiac Academy is another typical Kindle Unlimited series. It's based on these two twin sisters who go to this magical school and find out that they are the heirs to the kingdom. However, there are also a group of male heirs and they want to stop the twins getting into power, so there's quite a lot of rivalry. It is a bit of a bully romance to start off with, but that does kind of filter off. And like I said, it's a supernatural school, so there's lots of different supernatural creatures. And whilst it's maybe not the most well-written series ever, it is a lot of fun. So I've read the majority of this series. It's just the last two books that I haven't read, but what my plan is when the last book comes out towards the end of the year, I'm just going to reread the whole of the series and then read the last two books then. Then we have the Last Hours series by Cassandra Clare. So I've read A Chain of Gold and Chain of Iron, and of course A Chain of Thorns has just come out. I think I've talked in a video that whilst I really can't wait to read Chain of Thorns, I'm a little bit unsure as to whether to wait until we cover it for By the Angel Along, as I would quite like to reread A Chain of Gold and Chain of Iron in order to then read A Chain of Thorns. Similarly, along that vein, I have The Eldest Curses by Cassandra Clare. So that is another series set within the Shadowhunter world that follows Alec and Magnus, and I've read the first book within that series. I haven't read the second one, and the third one isn't out yet, and we don't know when we're going to get that. Again, we will be reading that as part of By the Angel Along. In fact, that is the series that we're reading after The Dark Artifices, so I'll start my reread of the first book in that series I'll reread the first book in that series in April, start the second one in May, and I'm sure whenever the third one comes out, Becca has already said she'll resurrect By the Angel Along so that we can all read it together. There's also Cat Plus Gamer, which is a manga series which I started this year. I have now read volume 1 and 2, so I will be continuing that series in, I think it's October that the third one comes out in English. This is a really fun manga series about what it's like to own a cat as well as be a gamer, and I just find it so relatable because I do game and I have a cat. Then we have the Bridge Kingdom series, which is a series I really enjoyed but I can't remember too much about. So I've read the first two books within this series. I think I rated them really highly. I think I gave them sort of like a 4 or 4.5 stars, but I think in order to continue the series I'm gonna have to go back and reread the first two because like I said, I just don't remember them. Then of course we've got ACOTAR, so A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. As I've said, Sarah J Maas is one of my favourite authors, if not my favourite author, so I am completely up to date with the ACOTAR series and I'm really excited to see where she takes those characters next, so absolutely I will be reading the next book whenever that comes out. And then just lastly we've got the Raven Cycles. So I did read the Raven Boys a couple of years ago. I do have quite mixed feelings in terms of the Raven Boys, in a sense that I'm not too sure I enjoyed it, but I did listen to the audiobook and I'm kind of thinking if I maybe reread the book, maybe I'd enjoy it more, and I'm willing to give it another go. So I'm keeping that series on my list and not DNFing it for now. So there you have it, my series wrap up. Are there any series that you think I should prioritize? Please let me know down in the comments. Are there any series that you're reading at the moment? Again, let me know in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.